to be peaceful and be without conflict is the natural yearning for everyone. And yet this peace seems elusive because of only one factor, which is thinking. It is thought that comes in the way of peace. And thought creates this constant disturbance, which is chattering within us, creating division and causing us to thereby engage in various activities, looking for peace, looking for happiness, while not being at peace now. Thinking is a faculty which is essential, and it is a unique faculty that is provided to humans to be able to live in a way that is beyond what animals are able to. If you look at animals or even little babies who have not developed the faculty of thinking, they are living prior to thinking. So the state prior to thinking is peaceful in its own way, but it is a very limited state because there is only the ability to respond to each moment from a very limited conception. So if you look at any animal, it is naturally found to be at peace. They are responding to stimulus in their own way, and it may involve various activities that are necessary for them to survive and so on. But they are not creating any sense of self, at least as far as we know, that is causing them to project time and looking for happiness later, worrying about what they did already, and thereby not being present fully now. If the first thing we will notice with all animals in general is they are actually fully present now. Their senses are quite alert. There is no movement away from now. They are looking very alertly. They are hearing, smelling. All the senses are very sharp. That's why animals respond to natural stimuli very intelligently. Whereas with human beings, when we have developed the faculty of thought through evolution, this thinking has also created what is called as self-consciousness. We have this sense of a little self, which is called the ego or which is called the mind, whatever term we use, is this entity that is created through this thinking, which is separating itself from this moment and projecting a continuity across time. This is the nature of the egoic self. It imagines or it projects to journey through time, through past and future, imagining to be a continuous entity, which is the me. And this continuous entity, therefore, constantly indulges in comparison, in regret, in guilt, in pride, in all the various movements of thought, which is perpetuating it, which is sustaining it, and in the process creating a lot of conflict. When there is a perception of any kind, let's say we see, the eyes are seeing something, the seeing happens through the faculty of the sense of vision, just as any animal would see as well. We have memory and knowledge, which then kicks in, which is able to match the pattern of what is being seen to recognize who it is or what it is. To that extent, memory and knowledge are very useful. And we can also, through that memory and through that knowledge, understand the pattern of what is being seen and thereby respond to it appropriately. But on top of that, what we do is we project this sense of a separate, persistent entity called the me, which is projected as the seer. And similarly, we project a separate entity then for the object of perception, which is projected as the seen. And in this division, we are engaging in comparison, in envy, in conflict, in feeling superior, in feeling inferior. All of these are coming forth out of this division. If we look at now something very simple as looking at an object of nature, let's say a tree or a plant or a flower, there is a spontaneous rising of the subject and the object. The very memory, the perception, the senses create this division spontaneously that there is a flower there, there is the seer here, the time, the space between the subject and the object, the distance, all of this is created by memory instantly, which is necessary for survival. Because if there is an animal or if there is some danger, then we know how to move away or all of it. So this is all part of the intelligence of the living organism, which is there in every human. So in that sense, there is a transactional me that rises each moment. But we persist or we perpetuate this me through continuous thinking into what we imagine to be a permanent me. So we have this notion of this sense of I, who is supposedly remaining constant as an individual. So we think there is someone as an individual, as a separate individual here, who is not the entity in the other person. So we think there is a separate permanent individual there in the other person, and so on in each person. And this individual self we project as journeying through time and as the experiencer of all perceptions and the controller of all actions. And this imagination, this projection, is what is creating the division, which is causing conflict. Because once we project that there is a separate individual self here, then the separate individual self wants to sustain itself through time. And the way to sustain itself through time is through projecting future states and through thinking. So when there is no thinking, there is no separate me. And because the absence of the me is found to be calamitous for this separate individual self, it is pushing us constantly to think about something or the other. So the brain is not quiet because there is constant movement about one thing or the other. And this movement is what is sustaining the me, not the outer movement. We can be walking, working, all of this can happen, and the brain can be still within. And the other way around, one can be sitting very still, and the brain can go to one end of the continent and come back. So, movement, when we say, first of all, it's very important to recognize that we are talking of inner movement, not outer movement. Outer movement, in fact, is very healthy and essential when it's happening in the right way. But the inner movement is what is causing all the conflict. And this inner movement is there because of this sense of separate individual self. The individual self is sustained through movement of thought. And therefore, thought creates this disorder. When we say thought, again, it's important to recognize that thought has both functional purpose as well as this psychological domain where it doesn't belong. In the functional domain, thought has a role to play, which is how technology is developed, which is how we are able to do anything at all, even to cook a recipe, to drive a car. All of this requires thought. And that thought is transactional. We look at an object, we recognize it's a tree, that is a form of memory. We look at a person and we recognize who it is, what's their name, what is our relationship to them, when we have seen them before. All of this comes forth spontaneously, and all of that is functional memory, essential to relate in a sane way. Otherwise, we look at a person and we don't know who they are, then it's not, it's a neurological state that is found in some people, which is not um, practical to function. Right? So for practical, sane functioning, we need memory, which is thought, which is knowledge. All of that comes into play to interact and relate in a sane way. But the same thought, when it is engaging in this psychological domain, creates the disorder. So first we have to recognize that thought, when it is operating where it's not needed, is creating the disorder. That is the core problem. So whenever we sit in meditation, for instance, what we find is we have this default mode of thought operating, wandering here and there, not simply being present. It's thinking about what happened yesterday, what happened 10 years ago, what did he say, what did she say, what did this politician say, what did, it can go from one domain to another. With each domain, it immediately projects a sense of subject and an object. So constantly this me is sustaining itself through shifting identities all the time. One moment I'm worried as the father or as the mother, then the next moment I'm thinking as the employee, then the next moment I'm thinking as the citizen or this or that. All of these are constant movement of thought, which is creating this disturbance. So that is the state of most human beings, which is what we call as duality. So before we talk about non-duality, it's important to understand what is duality. The duality is nothing but separation between the individual self and the world. And the world is seen as out there, and there is an individual self here inside the body, which is separate from the world, experiencing the world. Then the world is other, I am here. Then that separation is duality. Transactionally, this is how it, of course, operates. When I see a rose, the rose is there, I am here. There is a subject and an object. It's a natural rising of both subject and object. But it goes instantly when that perception is over. Then the next moment, there may be a different perception. A sound is heard, and we say, I hear the sound of a bird chirping. And the subject is here as the hearer, and the bird chirping is the sound of the object. So in this way, there is a spontaneous rising of subject and object, which is not a problem because it comes and goes, comes and goes. But the connecting of all of this into an individual separate self as the me, and this individual separate self, therefore recording everything, registering psychologically as my experience, my knowledge, my memory, and thereby creating this illusion of a fixed entity, is sustaining this duality on a apparently permanent basis. So the illusion we all have then is that there is somebody here as a separate me, and therefore we project in turn a separate entity in everyone else. And we think, therefore, that this me is the center from which I am operating, or this is the me. And similarly, we project a center for everyone. And then naturally, the me is being compared with the others, or it is in conflict with others, because the me is sustained by the images of the past and the projections of the future. And all of this is then held on to, and then the same thing is projected for the other people in our relationships, whether it be someone close or someone distant. We immediately project that there is someone there as a separate self, and we project a story onto them. Whether the story is very detailed, in the case of someone who's very close to us, or it's a very broad story. But we instantly project, and that's why when we see someone, there is a desire to place them somewhere. There's a question of what do you do or where are you from, and all of this. It's okay to ask the question in a very normal way, but many times it's the me that's trying to place them so that we know what their mind is, what their individual self is. We want to project an image there and then create a relationship with that image instantly from the image that we have of ourselves. And then we like them, dislike them, we judge them. All of this comes forth instantly because of this constant image making. So this is duality, right? And this causes conflict. So this is what we have to be very clear about. When we talk about self-inquiry, it's a simple pointer, first of all, that we are living in an illusion. And that has to be very clear, that otherwise, if this is not seen as an illusion, then this becomes our reality, which is how most people believe. They believe that there is somebody here as a separate individual self, and that separate individual self then becomes the fixed center, and that is the reality. So, and then the world becomes a reality based on this center. Because I see the world is real, and I am here as real. Then the third thing we project then is the idea of, therefore, a God, a sense of Ishwara. So the idea we project of God, or someone says no God, they are doing the same thing, which is the separation as the self and the world, therefore posits that there is a creator for this world who is separate from this self and who is separate from all the selves that are out there and separate from all the entities that are there, all the objects that are there, and he or it is the creator of this whole world. So that comes up also along with it, and every civilization, every culture has projected this sense of a transcendent being as God who is separate from this world and who controls all of them. And then there are those who come and deny that there is no God, there is only nature, and so on. But this triad is called as Jiva, Jagat, Ishwara. Jiva means the individual self, Jagat means the world, Ishwara means this projection of God. So then the individual self, because of this projection, wants to sustain itself in the afterlife as well. Because once we have this notion that there is an individual self, then the idea of death is obviously the greatest calamity for this individual self. So we say the body goes, everything goes, but the individual self remains. And then the individual self is projected to go to heaven, or it is projected to go through many lifetimes, and then one day be liberated from the cycle of birth and death, and then reach the divine abode, whether it be a physical space as projected by many religions as heaven, or whether it be a state of being. All of this projection comes for the individual self. So all of this is what goes in the name of religion or philosophy, right? Whichever philosophy we go to, they are taking the individual self and then the world and then the overall what is called as ontological position of this individual self and the world and the being. So this division is the root of all conflicts, as we can see, because the moment I believe in an individual self and I believe in a particular philosophy or a particular destination for this individual self, then that destination is different from the belief structure of the other person who believes in a different destination. So in order to feel secure in my belief, I have to either prove him wrong or, in the worst case, get into a violent confrontation with him. So this is why, very ironically, we see that religions produce so many wars, because what is going in the name of religion is actually not true religion, but this division. So when even the word religion, one of the root meanings of this is to connect to the source. But we actually use the word more as an identity, that I belong to this religion, you belong to that religion, because it becomes another identity, and this identity becomes even more important than other identities, because we recognize that all these other identities can come and go, but we hold on to one identity which seems most important, which is the religious identity. And then we project an idea of God, and then we get this sense of security that this individual self will journey after death into these realms, and then somebody else says something, and then there is conflict. So all this we see. So the direct recognition of self-inquiry is to first question. It's not to make any dogmatic assertion even, but to just question if there is an individual self here at all. That is the question. So the other way to put the question simply is, who am I? When we say, who am I? Normally, we answer that question as if there is an individual self. So we say, I am whatever. I am son and father. Whatever we put after the word I am is an identity or a label that is given to the sense of a permanent individual self, which is what we take ourselves to be. But if we stop and ask a simple question, which is that whatever you say after I am is coming through thought, it's coming through knowledge, it's coming through memory, and it is also not found to be present all the time. So what is this? Who are you rather? Who am I when there is no thinking? When thinking is absent, what is here? It's a simple question, and we can just directly come in touch with it by asking the question now. So that's why in the booklet, Who Am I, Nanya, the method is simply said in a very simple way, which is when a thought rises, ask who is having the thought. The answer will come, I'm having the thought. Then simply ask, who is this I? Whatever thought comes, the identity of the thought and the thinker comes along with it. And we get indulged, or we indulge in that duality, and we think I am the thinker and the thought is there, and we run with it. Or we control it by saying that I have to not think this thought, I have to think some other thought, or even to tell myself I have to remain still. All of this requires me to take on a different identity as I and say I have to control the thought, I have to silence the thought, I have to use my willpower and think a different thought or not think at all. All of this comes again taking myself to be an I, which is a product of thought, which is coming from knowledge, from memory, and all of that. But the direct pointer is to stop that whole process and ask, who am I when I'm not thinking? Thought has risen here, and we see the thought, and there is a thinker coming with the thought. When we recognize that thinker and thought are here, and prior to that, there is a presence here. And the simplest way to come to that presence is to just recognize that we are able to perceive everything here without engaging in thought. Even to perceive all objects, just to take this moment and just be very alert to all the perceptions. Because normally our mind is taken over the organism, the thinking faculty has taken over the organism, that we are using the sense perceptions as a means to further thinking. So thinking becomes the primary focus, and the sense perceptions are just used as a means to further it. But instead, if we reverse it and we just don't engage in any thought about anything that is not here, and just give total attention to what is here, whatever the sound that is there, whatever the sight that is there, whatever is in front of us, that's another direct way to stop this thinking mind, which is constantly moving here and there. And when we get caught in the head, what happens is it creates again a conflict, because we think I have to stop thinking, and that's another thought. And that thought is in conflict with the thought that has come before, which is the thought about whatever happened yesterday. And in this conflict, I find that I'm either able to stop the thought for a moment, only for the next thought to rise, or I'm not able to stop the thought, or I want to indulge in that thought. All of this is happening because of this belief in identifying with one thought over another thought, without recognizing the presence that's here, which is free of thinking itself. So to just simply remain still is to ask who is there prior to thinking. Who am I when there is no thinking? Now that stops thinking, and there is a silence right there in that very moment when we ask, who am I prior to thinking? There can be no answer to that question, because if any question comes, any answer comes, if you say I am awareness, or I am the pure self, or I am Atman, or I am Brahman, all of these are thoughts. It's only thought that can provide any answer in the affirmative to the question, who am I? So that's why the question, who am I, is not meant to get an answer. It's meant to still the mind. That's all. As long as we are looking for an answer, we are still engaging in the mind. But when we recognize that no answer can come through thinking, or rather, no answer can come when there is no thinking. Only thinking can provide answers, and thinking only provides limited answers, which is knowledge, which is always finite. And so when we recognize that thought is limited and any response from thought is therefore limited, the very recognition of the limitation of thought stops thought, and there is silence there. Now a question may arise as to, how do I stay in that silence, or what do I need to do to experience that silence? Or what do I need to do to hold on to that silence? Or what do I need to do to have a experience of any kind? Now, what we have to recognize is this very question is again coming from thought. The moment there is silence, it's another thought that's rising, which is wanting to claim this silence by saying, how do I remain still forever? How do I remain still permanently? How can I hold on to the stillness? Is there more to the stillness? This is not it. So there are so many ways in which the voice in the head again comes, and it again tries to make the stillness into an experience for itself, and thereby comes back through the back door. So that's why being alert is very essential, so that any thought that rises, even in this way, which is looking to have an experience of any kind, recognize that that's also thought. And then the question, who is having this thought? Recognize that it's again knowledge. It is the desire of this individual self projected through time that wants to be permanent. Who desires permanence? Only that which is projected in time. See, permanence is an illusion that is projected by the individual self to keep itself going. Because what is eternal is not permanent, it is always now. The moment we are projecting time, which is the idea of permanent as opposed to temporary, both of these are movement in time. The word temporary, of course, comes from temporal, which is time. And so we project an opposite of temporary, which is permanent, which is all of time. And so we project that there should be an individual, there should be a state that is there for all of time. And this all of time is also a projection of thought, which is put as an opposite to temporary. But the important recognition is both permanent and temporary are only through thought. When there is no thought, there is no such thing as permanence. There is only now. And there is nobody here but this very moment. What is here, what is now, is free of any separation. The moment separation comes, it projects time, it projects permanence as well. And then we project that there is this idea of whether the individual self or the supreme self, and all of these as projected as permanent in time, it's all coming forth from the same root illusion. That's why it is said that truth is not permanent, but it is timeless. Being timeless is very different from being in all of time. In all of time, one can only project thinking. One can project the beginning of time, end of time. All of this is just activity of thought. But time is cyclical and it keeps rolling, and it is necessary for functional purposes. But the only reality is now. And now what is here is just this simple presence, which is intelligence itself, that is expressing in infinite ways. So what rises up as me in this moment is this intelligence that is able to perceive through this human body, human brain, what is in front and what is there and all of that. And then the next moment it is able to perceive something else here. The same intelligence is operating in the tree, in the flower, in the plant, in everything that there is. And it is always functioning only now. The only thing that is projecting time is thought, which is non-different from the individual self. So that's why the self is time, the ego rather is time. And the egoic self, through time, sustains itself. Thought is time. When we recognize all of this, then, and we ask the simple question of what is here when there is no thinking, there is no answer to that. And there is simply this presence of what is, which is the divine intelligence. And that seems like complete lack of control of any kind, because the me is always wanting to be in control, wanting to hold on to some fixed point, and wanting to thereby have a sense of security, certainty about everything. But when we let go, then there is a total emptiness. There is a complete absence of any center where perceptions are happening, responses are happening, but all of this is happening without any center, without any ground. And to recognize that this is already happening perfectly and not to try to hold on to again a center is surrender. When we say surrender, that's why self-inquiry and surrender are one and the same, because what self-inquiry leads to is surrender. When we say inquiry, it is not, first of all, to find anything, but it is only to let go of the false. When we let go of the false, then we recognize that there is no ground to hold on to. And when there is no ground to hold on to for the me, and what's happening is seen as spontaneous happening, all the perceptions and the memory that is there necessary to process the perception and the responses and all of that. And we recognize that all of this is happening spontaneously. When we come to our senses, as I said, when we are just recognizing what the senses are processing, and not move away, not because the me is what is rising to make us move away. So if we remain alert and not move away through thinking, and thereby again coming back as the I, the self, the ego, but just remain present where the senses are all coming into the brain, they are providing whatever is happening here and now. There is a memory that's rising, recognizing it. There is a response that's rising, and there is nobody doing any of this. It's just happening. That can be threatening for the me. So the me will immediately rise up and say, I have to take a stand now. And to recognize that that is the thief that's coming through the back door, and therefore letting go and just giving in completely, giving up to this intelligence, which is perfect already, is surrender. We don't have to do anything because it's already perfectly, this body is such an intelligent living organism. The brain is so complex, so it's functioning so beautifully. If you just look at even a single perception and how a vision happens or how hearing happens. All of this is happening perfectly. Memory is functioning perfectly. Everything is functioning perfectly. And to recognize this perfection and to not divide oneself from this activity of the brain into a me which wants to claim that I am doing it, but just let go is surrender. So self inquiry leads to true surrender, not surrender in a sentimental way to an external conception of God or to some projection of thought and so on, but to be completely empty within. This total emptiness is the hardest thing for us because this individual self always wants to hold on to some specific center from which it can look at the world. So that's why it will come back and say, oh, I am pure consciousness. I am the eternal Brahman. Whatever word it comes, even the most pious word it comes up with, is still a way for this me to come back to assert its presence. So to not believe in this and to just let go of all conceptions of thought and just let this intelligence function without any division, any separation. This is true surrender. And this surrender happens as the culmination of self-inquiry itself. Because self-inquiry, again, is not like scientific inquiry where there is this division that is trying to get to something. It is only the negation of the false, which is the essence of self-inquiry, and thereby coming upon stillness. And that stillness is surrender. When there is absolutely nothing to hold on to, then what is there is divine, because that is what's making everything already happen. And that is without any support. That's why it's called Niralamba. Alamba means support. Niralamba means no support. It has got no support because it is the source of everything and it is making everything function already. So to completely surrender to this and not take any stand as me to try to know it, to try to experience it, to try to understand it, but to simply be. This is the essence of surrender. This is also captured in Aksharamanamala very beautifully in the 36th verse. It says, "Thou said, be still, and thou remain still too." Chumma iriyana. Do you know the verse? 36th verse. Anyway. So that is the whole point there, is to remain still and not move. Yeah, that's right. Sollara sollini solladu sollini sollara nil endru summa irundane arunachala. So it says you spoke without speaking and you said don't use the word, right? Solladu ni sollara nil endru. That's what sollara nil means. Be without any word, right? Sol ara nil. Sol means word. Sol ara nil means be without. So to know is to take a position, right? To take a word, to take a stand. To remain without the word is to remain free of division. Externally, of course, we have words and we need knowledge and we need, as we said, functional thoughts are needed. But inwardly, to not take any position, any stand, to not hold on to any word as me, including the most profound word, because every word is coming from knowledge which is limited. So the greatest teaching is captured in this verse. It says, be without taking any word, which is surrender. Summa irundane arunachala. Just remain, just be still. And we can recognize that right now. The beauty of this is it doesn't require any knowledge, therefore, because it is the ending of knowing itself, as we said. Knowledge is necessary only in the external world. There we need knowledge. We need time. We need to learn. We need to do things. We can get good over time, better and better. But here, it is because timeless already, it is available to anyone at any moment. The only question is that of letting go. If you let go of this false sense of control, then it's already here. But it's the most difficult thing. It's like someone said, nice. Someone was hanging off a tree from a cliff, and he cried to God. It said, "Oh God, please save me." And then the voice came and said, "This is God." And he said, "Help me." He said, "Don't worry, let go." The person said, "Is there anybody else up there?" So that's basically what we do. God says, "Let go," and we don't trust, and we hold on to a concept of God. So this letting go is the hardest thing, and that's why we are always taking a stand through some concept, some idea, some position. When we just let go, we find that things are already happening. And in fact, they happen perfectly. So if we just come to this now through a moment of sitting in silence, we can just feel this presence now, right now. So we'll just sit for a moment. And we can just remain aware. That is, just be aware of what's here now. We don't have to conceptualize anything. We don't have to even practice letting go or anything. Just be aware of what is here. And just recognize that all perceptions are happening automatically. All the sounds are being heard. We don't have to concentrate on anything. We just have to be aware. Being aware is holistic. There is no need for even concentrating on anything. Concentration is exclusive. Awareness is whole. Just aware of all the perceptions here, the touch of the skin on the floor, the sounds, the smells that are here. Then no sound is a disturbance. Any sound is there, it's all part of the environment. And all of this is being processed very spontaneously by this body. And there is no thought. And we recognize that whatever is being processed is recognized through memory, through knowledge, automatically as needed. We don't have to use any volition, we don't have to invoke any will. There is a natural recognition, and if there is a response that's needed, it will also come out of that recognition. And all of this is happening spontaneously without anybody doing it. That's already what is true here. And the illusion of this me is not believed in. This emptiness answers all the questions too, right? Because all the questions, such as what is the purpose of life, what is the meaning, how to act, how to be free of the fear of death, how to be free of desires, all of this are there only for the false me. And we normally engage in various philosophies where various theories put forth, which is all sustaining the separation of the false self. But when we recognize that this false self doesn't exist even now, then there's nobody to look for a purpose, nobody to worry about death, there's nobody to fear anything, there is nobody to look for any experiences. There is only the fullness of presence now. And the fullness of presence now is already peace, joy, lightness, and intelligence. And it's unique as well. Each brain, each body is unique, and it expresses itself in its own way. And there is no division from it. There is no wanting to know anything about it. There is just this. That's why it is said to be so simple. If you just let go, it is so simple because it's already all happening without any separation. The separate self creates grief, it creates joy, it creates all dualities. All image making is for the separate self. All sources of conflict. If you look at every conflict, it's coming from this separation as the individual self. When that's not there, what is there is only the silent presence, which is deathless, which is beginningless, endless, which is fully present now. And it's functioning through each brain, each body perfectly. That's all there is. We cannot name it, we cannot conceptualize it, we cannot hold it because it is prior to all of that and it's what's making all of it happen. That's why the Upanishad says that that which is known is not it. That which is seen is not it. That which is heard is not it. Because it is what is making the knowing happen, making the seeing happen, making the hearing happen. It is that which is functioning, expressing itself through each one of us already. There is nobody here other than that. That's why to come upon this is the first step and the last step. There is nothing more that we need to know. There is nothing more we need to learn. We just have to remain alert to not fall back into the illusion of the separate self. Then what is here is already that.
This falling back to the separate self is moment to moment because it feels like as if one has to permanently start falling into the illusion.
Yes.
Listening to you, that permanence word has a
Correct. Yes. You just remain alert, and if any thought rises, just gently put the question, who is having this thought? And be free of that false separation. Yeah. The moment we project permanence, we are projecting again a conceptual idea. Just now, that's it.
yeah, because the word moksha liberation has such a heavy weight to it.
Yes.
Feels like it's to be at a later time, or
Yes.
there has to be a certain huge practice sadhana to go and achieve it.
Yeah. So every word brings with it its own weight. If you make it into a concept, then it becomes its own weight too. So that's why uh, the word, even the word emptiness, is been made into a huge philosophy by the Buddhists, because then that becomes another thing to write about, to think about, to talk about. So yeah. Freedom is only now, right? It's only now. So, and it's already happening. Everything is happening on its own already. You just have to see it clearly.
You spoke about attention and awareness is whole. But in the moment when we know things only through attention. It appears as though I can only be aware of this sensory input. Right? Is that also an illusion?
See, attention is holistic actually. See, right now, you are seeing various objects. There is hearing happening. There is the smell of what is here, whatever smell that might be there, or subtle perceptions of the olfactory faculty, taste if there is anything, if there is nothing, there is nothing, touching, whatever. All of this is there already. And then there is a recognition of the sensory perception as needed. You're not labeling every sensory perception, right? So if there is a bird sound being heard, unless you bring the word, you don't tell yourself there is a bird chirping, but the chirping of the bird is being heard. Similarly, the surface that your skin is, your feet are touching is being felt. Unless you tell yourself that it's soft or hard or something, there is no labeling of it. And the labeling is necessary to interact. So you see a person in front, there is a label that's there, the name and the form. And in that moment, if that is necessary, that label comes from memory through which you interact. If the sound is necessary to interact with, then the sound is labeled. Suddenly, if a bird, say I was walking, suddenly a bird flew very low and it came very close to the ears, then the awareness is there that the bird is coming very close and there is an action responding to it. So it was very, like there was a crow that flew very close, then automatically the head moves away, right? So there is an awareness that happens on its own. When talking, there is an awareness of who the person is, right? But it doesn't mean that other things are shut down. Whatever is there is all there in the field of attention, which is choiceless. That's why. And in that choiceless field of attention, there is recognition, which is also choiceless. And the response comes out of the recognition. If we be very present, when we are not present, then seeing all of this, but my thought goes to something that happened with you yesterday. And then that becomes central. So the intelligence of this, all these senses and all of this gets clouded over because this thought which is moving in time takes over. Or sometimes some thought about some unrelated event comes, let's say, right? And then there is no attention, right? So when this movement of thought happens, it denies attention. When we are very alert to this and not go with that movement of thought, but just look at what is here now, then there is attention already. And there is nobody attending, right? There's only attention. The somebody comes only when there is movement of thought. When that movement of thought is not there, there is nobody here. There is just the brain is attending, memory is happening, recognition is happening, response is happening, all of this happens. But when thought intervenes and says that I have to do this, I have to, this whole psychological memory associated with this as the seer or you as the seeing, then interferes. Yeah, see, but the important thing though is we could be sitting still, like you said, or we might be engaged in a lot of outer action too. That is different from the dimension of stillness that we are talking about.
No, I know. It's nothing to do with
Right.
that. That's another word.
Right.
That's another sense of the word.
Correct.
But the attention to the pole or the line,
Yeah.
holding on, you're holding on to, grabbing on to, it's
Right.
taking you to a holding place.
Yes.
And there are times though you didn't have the attention, you let go.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a blissful moment in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So there is a certain release.
Yeah, that's true. See, that's why concentration is different from meditation. Concentration is an exclusive activity where you're trying to focus on one thing to the exclusion of others. And people practice that. But meditation is holistic, where there is awareness of everything that here is. And then nothing is a disturbance anymore. In concentration, there is disturbance. If a child suddenly makes a sound, you'll feel disturbed if you're trying to concentrate on one thing. But if you're just aware, then that is part of the environment. The sound a child makes, a baby may cry, a dog may bark. Nothing can disturb awareness, because awareness is not trying to focus on one thing, it is being aware of all that here is. Just being aware, just being. And in that beingness, action also can happen. If you're cooking food, hands are moving, cutting vegetable, the ears are still hearing the sounds. There is no division. There is just total silence inwardly, in which all of this is unfolding. But the moment we identify as the doer, then only division comes. Then I am identified as the me doing this task. Then I find anything else as a disturbance, and I am having a goal, and I am then obsessed over the goal. All of this comes forth because of this division. Otherwise, there is just attention. Then in that attention, things actually happen perfectly, because there is, see, concentration can also make things happen. Sometimes people achieve great things through concentration, no doubt, right? You can concentrate on one thing and do it very nicely. But that concentration taxes the brain, because you are exclusively focusing on one thing, and there is this need to not be disturbed, and finding anything as a distraction, and that's why people get even irritated when someone, when a child cries when I'm trying to focus, because there is this division. Concentration requires that, whereas meditation is just being. Nothing is a disturbance, because everything is, another way to put it is, everything is divine. There is things are happening. There is a task we are engaged in. The task is happening, but the senses are still hearing sounds, and all the various perceptions are coming in. Then one is wholly aware. And then if some other perception requires attention, then the intelligence is available to switch to that, right? Rather than locked into one thing, which is what concentration does. So concentration can do great things, but awareness is, being in meditative awareness is, that's why said to be effortless, right? Concentration is very effortful. You have to put effort to concentrate on, even in the name of, like, people concentrate on a sound or whatever. But here, that's why it's said to be so simple, in the sense that it is effortless. But that effortlessness is so difficult because we are used to effort. We are always used to focusing on one thing and concentrating on something, and we are always looking for that, give me something to do. Whereas here, there is nothing to do. There is just the doing happens, but there is, if necessary, but the simple pointer is just simply be as you are, as you know, irundabadiye iru, he said, be as you are. See, be as you are, just to clarify, is not to be as the ego is. That's the important thing, because be as you are, oh, we'll immediately jump to some egoic identity we have and we think that's how I am. Be as you are is to just be as the unique expression of the divine that we already are. Our eyes, our ears, everything is functioning already perfectly. The brain is functioning, thought is functioning. Each one has particular ways of processing. One is able to look at certain thing from an artistic perspective. One is able to look at something from a musical perspective. All this is there as part of the inherent natural disposition. And then there is no comparison. There is no such thing as, I want to be like that. I need to become like that, right? You are already perfect as you are. It is comparison that brings forth a sense of lack and therefore a desire to become something. We are already perfect as we are. And when we rest in that perfection, action happens as necessary. Action doesn't stop. In fact, it happens perfectly. If one is good at coding, coding happens. I don't get worried about how people will think about how I have written code or what others will say or whether it will be successful. None of that. There is just a total response to this moment, which is any activity one is doing at that moment. And then there is the expression of this perfection here and now, which completely removes any sense of comparison. Then I am better than nobody, I am worse than nobody. There is nobody to look up to, there is nobody to look down on. As long as I'm looking up to someone or I'm looking down on someone, I'm doing the same thing in different ways. The one who looks down will also look up. When we recognize that there is just this which is expressing itself in infinite ways, then there is only attention which is free of division. That is to be as you are. And that's the greatest relief right? One doesn't have to do anything. Just remain as you are. But it requires us to be alert, to not caught in this commentary of the inner me that's always says something. You are not good enough. You are not peaceful enough. You are not quiet enough. Whatever, right? So that inner voice is what is actually preventing us from being as we are. When we see that and be free of that, then we are as we are.